Have you ever felt like your family was just so busy, you're floating through life like down this river and just trying not to drown? You're just paddling to stay ahead. Well, we know what it's like to get so wrapped up in everything that you don't even have time to deeply connect as a family. What if there was a way to align your family values and goals to create a stronger sense of purpose? In today's episode, we're sharing a powerful process that has helped us define a vision for our family and start living it every single day. Next on Master Your Marriage.
So I'm pretty excited about today's episode.
Yeah, it was kind of fun putting this one together.
It was. So we're going to be diving into how we designed our family vision and mission statement for 2025. We've been working on this for the last week, and how we're planning to implement it, and even some of the results. Even though it's only been a few days since we finished it, we're already starting to see some results. So we're going to share that with you today as well.
But let's start with defining what the term family means in this context and who can create a vision like this. So family is any group really of two or more people who are committed to building a life together.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be defined by a legal marriage. It could be two partners with or without children.
Yes.
And we're going to share our vision today, which you can reference, maybe use as a roadmap or model or not. Take what works, take what doesn't. But the beauty of this process is that you can adapt it to fit whatever your family looks like, even if it's completely different from ours.
Especially if it's different from ours, right?
Paint by numbers.
Yeah, I love that. And so why would we even bother to want to create a vision statement for our family, whatever our family looks like, right? I think this is kind of a fun way to think about it. Let's look at history a little bit. And tribes throughout history often had a battle cry or a warrior chant for their tribe.
Okay.
These weren't just songs that groups of people sang together for fun. They were expressions. They were powerful expressions of emotion that would encapsulate the hopes, the dreams, the fears, the courage of countless generations. And these chants were symbols of their identity that was used not just in times of war, but also in times to create unity or to even celebrate victories.
Yeah. And a family vision statement can serve as your family's sort of battle cry or your rallying point. It's not just nice words on a piece of paper or maybe something pretty to hang on the wall. Mm-hmm. It can be this unifying force that becomes a guiding filter for how your family makes decisions. It's the declaration of your principles and of the legacy that you're trying to build together in your family.
Yeah. So last year we were on this podcast called Maxed Out Man.
Oh, Kevin and Michelle.
With Kevin and Michelle.
Yeah, that's fun.
During that conversation, we got asked a question that has stuck with me.
And, stumped us, maybe.
Well, I think we answered it pretty well, but it's a complex question to talk about even in an hour. But they asked us, how do you help your kids? And again, I know your family doesn't always have kids. And so you can also apply this question to yourself, not just to your kids.
Right,
but the question they asked was, how do you help your kids develop a strong sense of self that doesn't rely on outside validation? I mean, I think there's a lot of us as adults that are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The strong sense of self is important, right? It was such a good question.
It was such a good question. And it's something that I've been pondering all year, actually. And honestly, I think I'm still contemplating it because there's a lot of different layers to unpack with that question. But the truth is, you can't really give someone a sense of self. That's kind of the whole point of it, right?
Right.
The whole point in developing a self is deciding for yourself who you are and what you want to be and what your principles are, and then living a life that aligns with that. And that process unfolds over the course of our life. You know, as 50-year-olds, we're still working that through.
Right.
And we all develop different and unique values and principles that we strive to live by. And along the way, you know, if we're applying this to our kids, they're going to accept some of us.
Some of
they're
the goals,
going to reject some of us as they are figuring out who they are and carving out their own identities.
And you expect that.
You do.
We expect that, right? And even though we can't give our kids this solid sense of self, we can play an amazingly large role in guiding them, right? We can do a couple of things. We can teach them, one, that they're inherently valuable simply because they exist and they're part of this family, and their value is no greater or no less than anyone else.
That's right.
Right.
Even outside the family.
Even outside the family. Mm-hmm. And two, we can model what it means to live a principled life by staying aligned with our values and our core beliefs. So we wanted to create this vision and this mission statement. And for us, it's a way to lead by example right? And to live more intentionally and to just demonstrate more alignment in the principles, or at least the goals and principles that we felt were important for 2025.
So let's talk about
how we did it. How did we do it?
Came up with the vision
All right,
statement. Yeah. Okay. So we kind of talked about why it's important. So now how to actually do it. Well, step one, and this was really fun. We actually created a vision station in the kitchen. So Christmas time, just recently, I had purchased a large, wide brown roll of
butcher paper or something.
Like butcher paper,
Craft
but
paper,
really wide, because we were doing some crafts over Christmas and some painting, and I didn't want to get the table obviously messed up. So I bought this paper and I had some left over. So I rolled it back out, a blank sheet of it on this beautiful 10-foot table that Robert built for me.
Oh, there
so
you go.
Awesome.
Little plug. Right?
Yeah. And I set markers out on top of the paper, and I just encouraged everyone and said, this is our vision station. Anyone and everyone is welcome to just draw or write, whatever. There's no rules to this. Just anything that you might have as a goal for 2025. Feel free to just share it, write it down, declare it, whatever. And the purpose of doing that piece of it was really just to gather input from everyone.
Yeah.
As Robert and I start to make plans for the year, we don't want our son, who is our one living at home, we don't want him to feel like he doesn't have a voice.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I don't want to just take charge and make you feel like you don't have a voice. And so nobody wants to have their voice overlooked. So this vision station, the whole point of it was that we want to find things that matter to all of us. And it's important that everyone feels heard, everyone feels valued, everyone feels included in this process.
And it was a little bit harder to just write things on that piece of paper. And it became easier after we went through the next step.
Yes.
So step two.
Let's go to the next step.
So you take those ideas and you prioritize what matters most.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about things that matter most. So once we had everyone's input, Charlotte and I sat down in front of the fire because it was cold and that's her favorite place to be.
Yep.
Sat down next to the fire with a notepad and a couple of highlighters. And we spent probably a good hour focusing on one key question, right? What is important to us in the context of family?
And that was what's important to you and me as the leaders of this family. What's important most to us?
And I think that's an instructive question to ask, because I don't think unless you ask that question, you're not going to, when you ask that question, you'll start to develop answers that are different. Yeah. As we found as we went through this.
Different than just saying, what are your goals?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's different. So you can define family, however this fits in your life, but stick with the same question. What is really important to you or us, right? If you're doing it. For us, it was what's important to us about this family, right? And so the key phrase is what is important, because it helps uncover these unconscious values that we have. It's like an unlock code for the things that are lurking behind that are important to you, that drive us. And we talk about our values often are unconscious, and they will drive all of our decisions. So if you can get to those unconscious values,
yes,
right, then you can really get to what's super important to you in the context of family, as we're using for today's example.
Yes. Questions are everything. Asking the right question is so important. Like you said, when we just asked the question, what are your goals? It was like, well, I don't know. I'd like to buy an airplane. Okay. But what are your values? Right. That's a very different question. So what is important to you in the context of family is the unlock code. It's the cheat code to figure out those things that are on an unconscious level so deeply important to us.
And you have to keep repeating the question.
So we just kept repeating what's important to you. What else is important to you? What else is important to you? What else is important to you? And at first it feels like maybe some of the first initial responses are a little bit surface level. Oh, well, love is important.
Love, respect, harmony.
Yeah.
Those things.
Whatever it is, those things that are kind of surface level, because those are the things you probably think about all the time.
Right.
And so they're right there at the top. But as you keep asking the question, what is important to you? You start to uncover deeper things. Oftentimes they're more meaningful things, more meaningful values that resonate on a subconscious level.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And so for this process, specifically for us, it came with some unique challenges because our kids are really spread out. Like our oldest is 30, our youngest is 16. He's the only one still at home.
Right.
Right. And so on top of that, we got some really cool news that we're going to be grandparents in July. Right. And so,
excited.
This is a brand new wrinkle and dynamic in our family that shifted how we're thinking about how we spend our time, how we're going to make trips, how we're going to allocate time. Right. And it added another layer to our family vision statement, right? And it also changed our values a bit since last year.
So I think this is key to mention because every single thing that happens to us in life. Life changes us.
Yeah.
And it can also change our values. There was a time I remember when I got this really scary diagnosis, and overnight, like all of my values in health shifted overnight.
Yeah.
And finding out we're going to be grandparents, like that was also another one of those moments for me that was like, oh my gosh, like I'm less interested in going to the Caribbean this year than I am to spend time with my kids.
And I'm interested to figure out how we can do both.
Well, of course. Right. Yeah. But the point is, like, life changes everyone. Yeah. And so you do want to revisit this from time to time, probably on an annual basis, because your values change.
Yeah. I mean, our values are so much different. I mean, we just talked just about this one change. Like a year ago when we did this for 2024, our oldest was still in California.
Right. And he moved to Virginia.
And over the course of the year, moved to Virginia, and we're going to be grandparents. I mean, that will significantly shift where you want to spend time,
energy, resources, all of it.
All those types of things. Yeah.
So, okay, so let's back up a little bit. So we're making this list, what's important to you. And we're fleshing this list out, and we just go into, we can't come up with anything else. We felt like we exhausted every possibility.
You start repeating the same things over again.
And then we asked a new question this year.
Yeah.
That was a little bit different. We asked ourselves, what do we want our legacy to be? It's probably a grandparent question.
Probably.
I don't know.
But it's, it's how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
And what do you want your family to stand for, right?
And that was a question that brought us a lot of values that we hadn't really thought about before.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely. And it helped us sort of craft sort of this new vision for 2025. It made things a little bit more clear. Do you guys want to hear the list of values that we came up?
Yeah, why don't you share those
for 2025?
Do you have the list that we came up with? So this is just the initial list of values of.
Let's see. I have 3-page. Here it is. Values are listed in the context of family.
Right. So this is when we were asking what's important.
Yeah.
And then a couple of these came from the legacy question, but this is the whole list before we put it into a vision statement.
Right. So I'll read this to you, and just keep in mind, this is just the list that Charlotte and I came up with, and it's a rough list, right? So be an anchor and a safe harbor for our children, unconditional love, respect, kindness, safety, excellence, which means do your best, growth, time together, connection, being able to rely on each other, Christ-centered home, hardworking, resilient, resourcefulness, fun, humor, laughter, adventure, honesty, integrity, trust, personal responsibility, be a resource and a mentor for our children, develop leaders, know that there's nothing you can't do if you do your best work and it's good enough, right? For our children to want to choose to be together, even if we're gone. Yeah.
It was the last one on the list that when I asked the question and you were like, oh, I asked, what do you want our legacy to be? And you were like, oh, that's a little bit of a different question.
Yeah.
And it hit different.
Yeah.
And you sat with that, and all of a sudden you spit out like 6 more things, which was interesting because we thought we'd exhausted everything from the first question.
Yeah.
But you said, and this ended up being kind of the guiding thing that wrote the whole thing, was you said, I want our kids to not just get together, but want to get together, to choose each other even when we're gone.
Yeah.
So that there's this legacy that kind of lives past us, right?
Yeah.
That's something that we wanted to make sure was front and center in our vision statement.
Yeah.
So again, remember this list that we just shared with you. This is just our family, and we have kids. It's okay. And if yours sounds different from ours, you don't have to use the same words that we used. What's the next step?
Okay.
So step 3, we have this list. We're going to rank it. So this is the point where, like we just showed you, we have all the values, and this is like ingredients in a recipe, right? Yeah. We don't really know what to do with it
just
yet.
A whole long list of values.
We just have a long list. And to create something that's going to be truly meaningful, we have to know what we're going to do with this list. And we have to start by ranking it. You have to prioritize these in the right order. And that was probably the hardest.
I was going to say that was really hard. That was really hard. I think probably because Charlotte and I are pretty good at doing this. Like we do this in the context of our relationship, do this in the context of business. And so we're pretty good at just sort of digging deep to find those values, and maybe I think we're better at skipping the superficial one, like, oh, we want peace and butterflies,
right?
And we dig a little deeper, but that also means it's harder to sort of rank order these things. And
it was hard normally, because I want them all.
Right? Yeah. Normally we would rank 5,
but it was very challenging. But I think what just happened to me a second ago when I got choked up was sort of how you just sort of know it, just something resonates on the inside of you.
Yeah.
Even when you say it, it's like, that's important to me.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to get too conscious about ranking. You want to just let your unconscious mind guide you and just quickly. So what did we do? We grabbed highlighters.
Yeah. You had one color highlighter. I had one. And then we went through the list and I'm like, that's important. That's important. That's important. And we went down to maybe see if we could pare down this list of 50 or 60 things that we had sort of brainstormed onto a piece of paper.
So Robert had his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. But it wasn't necessarily important that my 1, 2, 3 was the same as your 1, 2, 3.
But I think in the context of your family, it was important that we all had something that represented something was really important to each of us. And that's how we ended up with, I don't even know how many we ended up with.
So the purpose of the ranking is really just so that we can see where we want to put the most emphasis, right? The most emphasis, not only in the vision statement, but also the most emphasis in our daily life, which we're going to talk about how to live these values later.
Yeah.
But that prioritizing, ranking them is an important step because it gives us clarity on where to focus the most.
Yeah. But we also ended up with some overarching themes.
We did.
Just from working on our value solicitation and asking questions. And those themes tended to pull forward.
Yeah, they did. So why don't you talk about that? That's the next step, which is step 4.
Step 4 is, you write it out.
Write out your vision statement.
Write out your vision statement. And that's the creative part. And if you have somebody who likes to write,
that's me.
Then you're in great shape. Like get the creative person, right? I'm more I don't know. People think that I'm creative. I really am paint by numbers. Like, yeah, I don't, but Charla is amazing at that. And so Charla sort of just took a first swing at it. And, the key is, as you're getting creative and you're authoring this, because really you're authoring
I like that.
You're authoring your document for your family, right? This is your guiding document, and it needs to feel authentic. It needs to inspire you. And this is what's going to guide you throughout the year. And if it feels like you and inspires you, if you've captured that voice as you've authored this document, this overriding document that is going to guide your family, then I think you're on the right track.
So my suggestions, because I like to write, mine might be a little bit more detailed, but don't get hung up on this. It seriously could just be a bulleted list.
Yeah.
It could be a song. If you guys are creative that way, it could be one sentence. It could be 3 sentences. It could be a page and a half long, but probably if you're first starting out with this, maybe keep it simple. Would be my key suggestion.
Yeah, and this is also something that you're going to post if you do it right. So I'll shift gears just a little bit when we talk about the business world. They always say that in the business world, if you write a vision and mission statement, you should send this out to your customers and your clients so they understand who you are.
Yeah.
Right. And so kind of bring that home to this central unit that we have in our home. We need to be able to post this vision statement where the people who enter our house and live with us
see it,
have a clear view. This is who we are. This is what we represent.
So I'm going to read it. I think I'm going to share what we came up with.
Yeah.
And again, as Robert said, we're going to talk just in a moment after I read it about how to live it. But as you said, one of our goals was, okay, we also want to make this something that's visual that we can post so that we're seeing it every day. We walk past it every day.
So when you first, I don't know if we're going to get to the part, but when you first did it, when you first wrote it, how did you feel after we reread it?
That was key because as we went back and forth and I took the first stab at it, I wrote it out, I handed it to Robert and then he read it, reviewed it. He tweaked it a little bit, had some ideas, additions, and we made the changes. And then we both read it and we both got super emotional.
Yeah.
I cried. You got choked up. It was like, oh, that's it. That's it.
So to just know that when she reads it,
I'll try not to cry.
Yeah. When she reads it, this is just important to us. And then hopefully as you guys do that for your family, if you take this challenge on, know that you can make it very personal for you and it can be something that resonates like deeply within your core as you've captured those things that are important to you.
Perfect.
Okay.
So the Snow Family Vision 2025.
Boom.
All right. So our home is a place, and I use the word is because I think you start with the is as though this were all true. Yes. And that's why I chose that is intentionally to begin with. So our home is a place of love, trust, and connection. We aim to create a space where every family member, children, grandchildren, yes, I'm already ready to cry because I'm excited about that. Children, grandchildren, and beyond feels not only welcomed, but drawn to be together, even when life's circumstances separate us. Because again, that was our big overarching theme. We want them to love each other, even if we're not here.
Yeah. Can I read the next paragraph?
Yeah.
Would that be
Give me
helpful?
a break.
Yeah. As parents, we strive to be an unwavering anchor for our family, providing a safe harbor of unconditional love, wisdom, and support. We pledge to always be a resource for advice, mentoring, and sharing life's joys, hardships, offering guidance with kindness, respect, and openness. Guided by our faith in Jesus Christ, we center our lives on values that reflect his teachings. These values guide our daily choices and beliefs by doing the following.
And then this is a bulleted list. Unconditional love. And there's a description, and the descriptions are describing and telling our kids what we want them to know. So unconditional love. You are loved deeply simply because you exist, because you are ours. We'll alternate.
Oh, we're alternate?
Yeah.
Respect and kindness. You will be treated with dignity and compassion in every interaction.
Safety and trust. Our home will be a place of emotional, physical, and spiritual safety.
Excellence and growth. We are always progressing. Just do your best. Effort matters more than perfection.
Resilience. Everything that happens is for our good and our learning. Learn from everything, adapt, and move forward.
Connection and leadership. We choose to prioritize time together and inspire greatness in one another.
Fun and adventure. We enjoy time together filled with laughter, joy, and a spirit of exploration.
Integrity and honesty. We live with transparency and truth in all that we do.
Together, we are a family that values resilience, embraces growth, and treasures the experiences that connect us. The legacy we wish to leave with our children is the knowledge that you are inherently valued and deeply loved. There is nothing you cannot do if you are honest, hardworking, and committed to learning and doing your best.
Awesome.
That's it. All right. Well, that was a little rougher to get through than I thought. So, but I think that's part of it. Like, that's how I knew that it was meaningful, is I can't quite, get through it without getting emotional about it. But that's what meaning feels like.
Right. And if you can get that, if you can capture the essence, then you're on the right track. So step 5, right? So we already talked about step 4. And so now step 5 is decide how you're going to live this vision,
right,
and mission statement each day. Right. And so really ask yourself, what's the point of creating a family vision statement if it just sits on a shelf or just hangs on a wall and it's pretty? We have to figure out a way to embed that vision into our daily lives. For us, it came down to doing a couple of things. One, finding new family habits and rituals and traditions that support this vision.
Yes.
Right. And 2, finding ways to revisit this vision regularly as a family. Yeah. So we went back to the brown paper that was on the table, right? And we looked at the goals that everyone had come up with. And these gave us ideas for habits and rituals that might support the vision that we'd already developed.
Right.
This is where, if you're doing this, you can make it personal to your family. If your family loves sports or cooking or playing games, you can then use these items to create traditions that will bring your vision into life.
Okay. So we're going to give you some examples of this, right? So we had our brown paper rolled out onto the table. And so we took our vision, went over to the table, and then we looked at okay, what are some ways we can incorporate these things together, right? And so one of the things on the list that our 16-year-old wrote out was that he wanted to spend more time with his 21-year-old sister.
Yeah, that was really cute.
Really cute. And that fit with us. We're like, that absolutely blends with what we're trying to create here. Let's do that. So how do we do that?
Yeah, because you think about, we have kids all over the country now. We have 2 that are here.
So Robert and I came up with the idea, okay, how can we accomplish this? So we came up with the idea, let's start having a weekly family night.
Right.
Right. And so we wanted to, my daughter loves to cook. How can we incorporate food? And we love to play games. How can we incorporate games? And so I texted my daughter and I said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we came up with. This is the idea that we have. We want your involvement in it.
Shared a little bit of the vision with her.
Exactly.
Right.
And she loved that. I think who wouldn't, right? She felt appreciated knowing that her brother wanted to spend more time with her. So of course she felt loved and she said, yes, this is awesome. I love this. I want to do this. And I'm usually free from work on Thursday nights.
Right.
So what about Thursday nights?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to play games. We're going to make dinner and have dinner together. And so we all got the same calendar. And this is our adult child, one of our adult children that doesn't live with us, but we all penciled it in and put it on the calendar. And of course, our son, who came up with the idea, loves it because it was his idea.
Right.
So now Thursday nights are on the calendar for the next year.
Right. And we may not get them all, but
yeah, we have the intention.
Right.
We may have to reschedule a few, but it's going to happen more often than not.
yeah. We also decided to start having weekly family meetings with Dallin to create an opportunity to live our values as well, right? Like connection, leadership, and teaching him some resilience. And these won't be overly formal meetings. They're just sort of an intentional check-in around the dinner table on Sundays. And each week we're going to ask him a few questions. We wrote it down, like, these are easy. And a lot of you probably do this with your kids if you have them. Like, what went well this week? What are you looking forward to next week? Are there any challenges that we can help you with, right? Like, how can we support you? And what can we do this week to make you feel more loved? Right? Like all those things.
These questions should sound familiar.
Yeah.
Because
that comes from your weekly marriage meeting.
Right. So we were like, okay, what could we do to show more leadership and teach Dallin some more resilience and things like that? So that's where this idea of having a weekly check-in with him came from. But of course, your teenager isn't going to be like, hey, come have a meeting with mom and dad. They're going to be like, no.
Yeah. No,
right.
He doesn't want to know it's a formal meeting.
No, but those types of questions are questions that we can just ask without calling it a meeting. It's just Sunday dinner.
Right.
But it's a way for us to hopefully guide him and mentor him through his responses.
Right.
Right. So, and then another thing we did is we reached out to our oldest son and asked his input on, how could we bring everyone together for our kids that aren't local to us?
Right.
Is there a way we can create some kind of a gathering or a family reunion? And he, which is interesting, has been, and I think it's just interesting how connected each of these actually was with each of our kids.
Yeah.
They were so on board because it was so important to us. I think it was important to them and things that were already sort of embedded into them. So he had already been feeling the call too, to like, how can I bring us together?
Yeah.
Because he's the one that moved to Virginia. So I told him what we were working on and he was like, yes, I want to be behind this. I want to lead this.
Yeah.
I want to be in charge of this. I want to gather my siblings and you guys and come up with a way. And he immediately gave me like 5 or 6 ideas that he had to make it easy for us to all get together. And he just sort of took responsibility for that, which is a win-win. I love that.
Right. And that's perfect because he's leading out. I mean, those are some of the goals, right? We want to create leaders. We want our kids to love each other. Like, this is so cool, right?
So those are just 3 of the things that we came up with. We came up with some other rituals, but those were 3 big ones.
Yeah. I mean, and this all happened within, 24 hours, actually.
Yes.
Like these started to happen. So we've already noticed, like, just as I mentioned, like as we started to create this vision, things started happening. Right.
Yes.
And by building these habits and traditions that align with our vision, right, everyone starts to feel more connected and invested. And they all feel like they have a voice. Like that paper was great because Dallin felt like he had a voice. And then we incorporated something that, met with his goals. And now we all feel more cohesive, more like a family unit.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. So another thing that I'm noticing that has already made a difference for me is it's helping me with decision making. So I tend to be someone who it's not necessarily hard for me to say no, but if it's a good idea or something that looks really cool, I want to say yes, sometimes to my own demise.
Squirrel.
Right? I can get squirreled.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So even myself, I can squirrel myself with an idea and I'll just jump into doing it without really thinking it through. But this has become, and maybe you can share why this helps me with that.
Well, I mean, as we start to talk about the vision, right, and the mission for the year, like now we use this as a filter or a template to make decisions, right? And you say like, okay, does this opportunity align with the core values and the mission that we have for this year?
Right.
And when no opportunities show up, we ask that question, right? We apply
aligned?
that filter to it.
Yeah.
Right. Does this align with what we want to do? And if it does, yes. If it doesn't, then we have the opportunity to say like, no, I don't think so. We can just chuck that idea.
And the crazy thing is like already in the last 48 hours, I've said no to 3 things.
Yeah. That many things
that
come
I
at
might
us
have
all the
said
time.
yes to.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, without a doubt, right?
Because it was so easy. And it's not that they weren't great ideas. One of them was an amazing opportunity, but it would have detracted from the things that matter most to us.
Yeah.
It would have taken the time that we had already said we're going to invest in family. And so it just became really easy. And for someone like me, like that's huge to be able to quickly say yes and quickly say no to things.
Yeah.
So it's just a really simple way for me to not get squirreled.
Right. And And as opportunities come up, we can always just sort of dig in and then use the roadmap to decide. And so what's next?
So the last step was that, as we said earlier, we wanted to make this something visual that we could see every day and also revisit it. So I'm good in Canva, but I don't think that you necessarily have to. You could type it up in a Word document and just print it on a piece of paper. I sent mine over to the printers so I could have it enlarged on a poster, and I'm going to place it on the wall near our back door where we go out to the garage in and out every single day. So it's something that we can just see and remember and revisit from time to time. And it's certainly something that the teenager is going to be forced to have to see too every time he leaves for school.
Yeah, but it's the same thing, right? As you publish your vision statement, like you're telling the world at large, anybody that's in your house can read your vision statement,
right.
Your children, your children's friends. And the thing about your kids is they start to soak up the things that you give them, even though they pretend that they don't, right? Yeah. And we've already sort of seen that with our oldest.
Yeah.
They, I think last year they said, oh yeah, we just finished our annual marriage retreat and set our goals for the year. And we just sort of looked at each other and we're like, what?
We didn't teach you how to do that.
I mean, they know that we do it. They certainly have access to the tools, but they've never said like, oh, hey, we want to do a retreat. What should we do? They just have seen us do it and they took it on and they planned their year. And
that was really fun.
I thought it was amazing. We were like, oh my gosh, like that's a little, just a little touching.
Yeah. So we, as we wrap up this episode, we hope that this idea inspires you to give it a try as well. Just follow the key steps that we shared with you today, and then take that. Maybe you create a vision station, and then maybe you, of course, do the values, and then you prioritize and rank those values, and then you create some written form of it, and then figure out a way to live it.
Yeah.
Right. As you take those steps, you can take the big steps and adapt it to fit with your family's unique, of course, dynamic. Every family is different. We know that. And yours probably doesn't look like ours. And that's okay. That's the beauty of it, actually. So just make it your own. Take the idea, make it your own, and incorporate it into your family's customs, your traditions, and your culture in a way that allows you to live your values. That's the key. A way for you to live your values and to create a life that is on purpose.
Yeah. And I will add that, oftentimes families have this little bit of a vision statement and they don't know it, but it's usually there. Like somebody will, and it's usually the mom who's thinking about it, but it could be anybody. You hang up a sign and it's like, we believe, or live in truth, or live your truth. I mean, there's oftentimes these statements and we love those. And I think those are great. And you're sort of, that's your family's battle cry. Like, oh no, kindness. This is how we are. We want you to refine that a little bit more with what's important when it comes to those steps. Like, what does being kind mean in the context of your family? Like, what are the steps?
And how do we do it?
And how do we live it? Right. And so if you have something like that, and you may say like, oh, we already have one. I just encourage you to dig deeper and to find those steps that will really create rituals around supporting, if kindness is the one for your family, like support those in your family. I think that's a really good next step. Like, we're going to take it to the next layer. We're going to challenge you and invite you to maybe take those next steps. So happy New Year to each one of you. And thank you so much for being here with us today. And just a quick reminder, be sure to subscribe to the show so that you never miss a new episode when it drops. And of course, our shameless plug, if today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for it if you'd click that little button, leave us a 5-star review. And it really helps us reach others who might benefit from these insights in these episodes. And of course, if this episode resonates well and you think anyone might benefit from it, please share it with them.
And be kind to each other this week. Put each other first. Remember, it's the small things done each and every day that make the greatest impact.
Until next time.